Okay, let's just dive right in. If you are sick and tired of feeling bloated, foggy, and just plain exhausted, we're about to break down a super simple, science-backed plan to finally repair your gut health and get your energy back for good.
I want to kick things off with a line that, well, it might sound like some kind of crazy metaphor, but I promise you, it is a biological reality. Your gut bacteria are currently starving, and because they have nothing to eat, they've started eating you. When you starve that internal ecosystem, those bacteria literally start munching on the protective lining of your own intestines.
And that internal cannibalism, it's the hidden trigger behind so many of the things we just assume are normal. That brain fog you can never seem to shake, that stubborn bloating that just makes you feel awful, and that chronic fatigue where 3 p.m. feels like you've hit a brick wall.
So the million-dollar question is, how do we stop this from happening? How do we actually heal our gut for good? Well, that is exactly what we are going to lay out step by step right now.
Okay, first up, let's talk about a mechanism inside you that almost nobody pays attention to, yet it's arguably the most important cleaner you have. We're going to call it your internal street sweeper.
You know, this right here clears up a huge misunderstanding we all have about digestion. We tend to think it's always on, right? Like this continuous conveyor belt. But it's not. It actually has two totally distinct modes. There's eating mode, which is all about mixing and absorbing, but the deep cleaning, the cleaning mode, that can only happen when you're fasting.
And here is where our modern lives create a massive problem. We are constantly grazing. A little breakfast, a mid-morning snack, lunch, maybe a sugary coffee in the afternoon, dinner, a late-night treat. Because we never really stop eating, the cleaning crew, well, they never get a chance to clock in and do their job.
And here's how it's supposed to work. For this street sweeper, and the sciencey term is the migrating motor complex, for it to even start its shift, your stomach has to be totally empty for about 90 to 120 minutes. Then, the cleaning cycle itself takes another full 90 minutes to complete. And get this, the second a single calorie hits your stomach, the whole process just stops, dead in its tracks.
So the fix isn't some expensive pill, it's just reintroducing space. What the research shows is that spacing your meals about 4 to 5 hours apart, with zero snacking in between, allows this amazing cleaning wave to complete a full cycle. You know, that rumbling in your stomach, that's not always hunger. A lot of the time, that's the sound of the street sweeper finally on the job.
Okay, let's move on to our second principle. Because once the place is clean, we have to take care of the residents living inside it. And this is what we'll call the 30-plant rule.
Research from a massive study called the American Gut Project found that the single greatest predictor of a healthy gut came down to this one number: 30. That's the magic number of different plant species you want to aim for each week for a really thriving gut.
Now, I know 30 can sound kind of intimidating, but it's so much easier than you think. It includes everything you see here. Fruits, veggies, sure, but also all of your herbs, your spices, your nuts, seeds, and legumes. A sprinkle of cinnamon counts, a handful of almonds counts. The goal here is diversity, not just volume. You see, different bacteria like to eat different types of fiber, so you're feeding the entire garden, not just one little patch.
All right, next up is principle number 3, and this one is a real game changer: aligning with the clock. We focus so much on what we eat, but the science is crystal clear that when we eat is just as important.
Think of your digestion like a factory that runs on different shifts. The day shift, it's fully staffed, it's super efficient, you have peak digestive enzymes. But the night shift, well, that's just a skeleton crew. Your body's ability to process food plummets after dark.
And this is where we get into trouble. When you eat a heavy meal at 9 or 10 p.m., you're essentially dumping a massive workload on that tiny, unprepared night crew. The goal is to move from that long grazing window to a shorter one, and try to keep your eating to about a 10 or 12-hour window. This gives your gut a real period of metabolic rest to repair itself overnight.
Let's move to our fourth principle, which is all about the system's wiring. You could be eating the most perfect diet on the planet, but if this one wire is frayed, your digestion will just grind to a halt. This is the gut's on-off switch.
So your brain and gut aren't separate entities. They're physically connected by this massive nerve called the vagus nerve. It's a two-way superhighway, and the flow of traffic on it is controlled almost entirely by your stress levels.
Biologically, it's impossible to be in fight or flight stress mode and rest and digest relaxation mode at the same time. If you're stressed or anxious or rushing while you eat, your body literally diverts blood flow away from your gut. You are, in effect, eating with the power turned off.
causing that food to just sit there, stagnate, and ferment.
Thankfully, there's a ridiculously simple 30-second fix. Before you take your first bite of food, just pause. Take 3 slow, deep breaths. And here's the trick. Make your exhale a little bit longer than your inhale. This simple act physically stimulates that vagus nerve and sends a clear signal to your brain that says, hey, we are safe. It literally flips the power switch for digestion back on.
And that brings us to our final principle. Now, this one isn't about adding things, it's about taking harmful things away. Number 5 is stop the chemical assault.
And I think this quote just sums it up perfectly. In biology, subtraction is often more powerful than addition. We are constantly, day in and day out, exposing our guts to chemicals that basically act like little bombs to our delicate microbiome. So the most effective strategy here is to just play a little defense. As you can see, we can defend against the big ones. For pesticides, you don't have to buy everything organic. Just focus on the most heavily sprayed stuff, the dirty dozen. For antibiotics, look, they can be lifesavers, but use them only when they are medically vital. And for chlorinated tap water, a simple countertop filter can make a massive difference. It's all about stopping that daily chemical assault.
So, let's bring it all together. Think of these 5 principles as your body's official operating instructions. Respect the cleaning crew by giving it space between meals. Enrich the soil with a diversity of plants. Align with the clock and stop eating late at night. Fix the wiring with a few deep breaths. And raise the shield to reduce your toxic load.
And the beauty of all this, the really good news, is that your gut is incredibly forgiving. The actual cells that make up your intestinal lining replace themselves every few days. What that means is you can start making these changes today and feel a real difference very, very quickly.
So I'll leave you with this one question to think about. Looking back at these 5 principles, the cleaning crew, the soil, the clock, the wiring, and the shield, which one of those is your weakest link right now? Because just knowing where to start, that's the most powerful step of all.